I think it's safe to say the console wars are dead. It feels like 2025, while a shit year, I would say, was also a redefining year for gaming entirely. Some in, I guess, maybe good ways, but a lot of bad as well. A lot of knocks during 2025, some goods and some bads, and some real big changes that I feel really redefine the direction of the future where we're heading when it comes to consoles and when it comes to, like, you know, just the overall market influence at this time. For over 20 years, the console war was like the heartbeat of the gaming industry, with it feeling like, you know, consoles kind of led the direction that games were going. A lot of, you know, developers would start out their games on consoles first before even, like, you know, building the PC versions even at times. But yeah, it was more than just hardware. It was a tribal entity, really. You were either Team Green or Team Blue, it seemed at the time. As me growing up as a kid, my first console was the GameCube, but my second ended up being the PlayStation 2. And from then on, PlayStation was just everything I always really had. I had the PSP. I had the PlayStation Vita. I had the PlayStation 3, which I probably will die on a hill and still say that I prefer that one over the Xbox 360. I know some people, you know, they love their 360, even though nowadays they admit that nowadays Xbox is being cooked. They still would sit up and say that, you know, the 360 was better than the PlayStation 3. But hey man, I'm in the other direction on that one, bro. I fuck with the PlayStation 3 and I'm probably gonna be there till I die. It was a very good console to me, man. And you didn't have to pay for the online or anything. It was all free. It's just the amount of gaming sessions I've had on there with friends and stuff. I will never turn away from that. If you look though at the landscape today though, in early 2026, those battle lines between, like, you know, the consoles have really vanished. I'm pretty certain at this point. It feels like 2025 was the year the plastic war ended, but not with a bang, I would say, but with a whimper. Between Xbox bringing its crown jewels to the PlayStation and Sony pretty much solidifying a massive 71% apparently in market share, today we're breaking down how Xbox has lost its way and why PlayStation is standing alone at the top, and why the console war is, I guess I would feel, officially dead at this point. I feel like there's really no point of arguing them, but hey, I'm pretty certain if you hop on Twitter, you'll find some people still clinging to thinking they need to do that. And I think the first thing I'd say that put the nail in the coffin was the death of exclusivity. I feel like that was a very big turning point. I feel like the defining moment of 2025 was the collapse of the exclusivity wall. For decades, you bought a console for games you couldn't play anywhere else, but in 2025, Microsoft just pretty much pivoted entirely from this. Hell, we saw heavy hitters like Indiana Jones and the Great Circle, Forza Horizon 5, and even Gears of War jump ship to PlayStation. I think that probably is really what dealt the final blow to some people, having a Halo game on PlayStation. This game has pretty much built the Xbox brand, at least from what I know from the outside, you know, perspective, and it's coming to the PlayStation 5 in 2026. So it's something to just really find yourself thinking like, wow. So it seems like Microsoft and Xbox are kind of jumping into a different market, but also trying to get to a separate portion of it before PlayStation does. But I don't think a lot of this helped Xbox at all, in the way that they just felt like they ruined their reputation in 2025. And oh my goodness, there have just been a lot of decision making in 2025 that just have not been the best for them. It's like we're just jumping, like, first ship is obviously the hardware sales plummeted. I believe I remember the president or CEO of Xbox, Phil Spencer, I believe his name is. I think I remember at one point he was on a video where he said the biggest hit that Xbox took, the Xbox One / PS4 era. I believe he mentioned in that video that their biggest loss that is affecting them even to this day was the switch from physical to digital, like, you know, games and whatnot. The ability for people to, you know, really hone in on the fact that they didn't always need to buy their games in physical stores, and, you know, they didn't have to wait outside for them anymore. They could literally just download them online and, you know, just have them pre-installed even and whatnot, and once the games go live, they can just play them from their house. And Xbox, you know, they made a mistake during the time of Xbox One's reveal. A lot of little silly things, like one, not being able to share the physical disc with your friends and all this. Not, I still remember that petty ass trailer that PlayStation released at the time. It was so petty, showing that you could share your game, your physical game, with your friends after Xbox announced that the console couldn't. Why they thought that was a good idea for gamers, why, was very like, I really don't understand that. I have no idea why they thought locking a game basically to your console that you couldn't give to a friend to play on their own consoles was a good idea. That was, I just remember that being one of the main things that was dumb about the console. Another thing I think also was that it kind of was treated more like a media box. It kind of was losing its identity of being a gaming console in certain areas. It just, I wasn't hearing a lot of good things about Xbox during the Xbox One release time frame, and this hurt them a lot. Even though they tried to fix it, they, you know, went back on the whole not being able to share physical games thing. That's the thing about first impressions, man. Like I said in the previous video, man, first impressions are everything to some people, and after you do them dirty in the beginning, they don't trust you. They won't, like, you know, they won't always come back to give a second chance. And that's like, you know, that's something to really pay attention to. And it's like Microsoft has somewhat in many areas learned from that experience, but at the same time, it doesn't matter now that they've learned from that experience, because it still affects them to this day. PlayStation's console, like the PS4, outsold the Xbox One, despite the fact that I think back then, for a certain time, Xbox One had a specific version that was the most powerful console. People didn't care about which one was the most powerful at that point. They just trusted the brand. They trusted the PlayStation brand more than they trusted the Microsoft brand. You know what I'm saying? It just, there was a level of trust that was just kind of fucked over there over the while. And I guess Phil Spencer is saying that, like, you know, that loss there is still affecting them today. Now people, you know, they're so, now that they're on PlayStation and they've bought an entire digital library of games, now this is where they are now. You know, it was different back then when people bought physical games, you know, but now people have bought their entire online, like, you know, gaming library. And it feels like, you know, that was really honed in and really put in full force during the PS4 and Xbox One era. And now that they're like, we're on the Series S and X and the PS5 now at this point, everyone has a big catalog of old games that they bought on the PS4 and, you know, in the Xbox One, and many people are not willing to jump ship from what they, like, you know, they currently have, especially with, like, you know, things like backwards compatibility going on right now. So now that people are able to play their older games that they bought on those previous consoles, on the PlayStation 4 and Xbox One and so on, what's really gonna cause many of them to jump ship now to another, like, you know, branding, when they have everything that they purchased now in one spot? So there are a lot of people on Xbox who will not leave Xbox, but there are even more people who were, like, you know, now drawn to the PlayStation 4 that probably will not leave the PlayStation 4 because they don't see a point now that they have all their games and most of their friends probably even on there. So now they've kind of made a home in the PlayStation brand. So it's like Microsoft has kind of gotten used to the point that Sony will probably outsell them when it comes to consoles now. And it doesn't seem like a market that's really that great for them to focus on anymore. So now they're going with a different approach, this play anywhere type of thing. Instead of being, like, you know, more so a gaming console anymore, they're kind of trying to become a gaming software where they like, just like, you know, Steam, they host, you know, games and whatnot, but they put themselves everywhere. Instead of where, like, you know, Steam is only exclusive to PC like components, Xbox is trying to put itself like on anywhere, from your phone, your TV, your tablet, anything basically that can host their application through the internet. They are trying to now put that as their main, like, cloud gaming is what it's called, I believe. And that seems to be where they're trying to get their biggest foothold in right now, is providing games there and some exclusivities and whatnot. So they don't mind where they're being played at this point. They'll move games, like, even to Nintendo if they can, trying to get themselves now in a different market. Instead of trying to compete with PlayStation over branding type of things, they're really just trying to take up your space elsewhere in places where you previously needed a console just to have access to these things. Sounds like a future of subscriptions, and my brain is kind of melting a little bit at the thought of that. Just the thought of people like, you know, having to pay subscriptions to now like cloud game on a smart TV or something, or to do so on their phone or tablet and stuff, and they have to worry about internet connections, possibly lag and all this and that. And it's like, you know, gaming just will be something different. It won't really be based on hardware anymore as much, because, you know, the games will be ran from hardware that's pretty much somewhere else. Now it's just like, you know, based on having a good internet connection just to maintain the game in some places. I don't feel like everybody in the market will move towards this, but it's just something, you know, to be aware of. Great for accessibility. It left, like, you know, Xbox players wondering why they even buy the console in the first place, which, you know, it's like, with them killing off exclusivity, it is a good question. You know, why not just go out of their way to buy a PlayStation if the same games that they want to play will be everywhere? Because me as a guy that's on PC, I noticed that, yeah, that Xbox puts a lot of their games simultaneously on the Xbox and PC. Something PlayStation doesn't currently do at this time. PlayStation kind of allows you to enjoy the game on the main console for at least a year or so before they actually drop a PC version on the Steam store and all that in the later year. And outside of the everywhere strategy pretty much causing a dent, we got the content gap, which, oh my goodness, I'm pretty sure everybody has been affected by this one. Basically, despite the massive acquisitions we've seen over the years, especially with Microsoft grabbing Activision and Bethesda, like 2025 has been marred by studio closures and project cancellations, like the Perfect Dark reboot. It's just, you don't like to see stuff like that. Oh, after a big like buy of a studio, now they're downsizing, like throwing away talent and all this and that. And it's not really the greatest thing to see, because, you know, games are already coming out in scarce numbers as is nowadays. Where the market, we used to receive so many of them within a handful of years, and now we're waiting past 5, 6, sometimes 8 years just to get a game. Those price hikes were like probably another main thing that just really, I think, probably were the biggest nail in the coffin also for the Xbox branding. Even Game Pass saw price hikes. And with a bunch of games also coming to the PlayStation 5, and it's just, with it being like, the Xbox consoles are the most expensive consoles on the market right now. Even the weaker one. Who wants to buy that when they can just go and buy a PlayStation? A PlayStation that's eventually going to get every single game that Microsoft is releasing. PC and PlayStation are going to have access to the same Xbox games that Xbox players, like, you know, were kind of holding to themselves for years. What reason is there to have an Xbox at this point? They made themselves the most expensive on the market. This everywhere strategy has killed their exclusivity, like, you know, driving the market. They don't seem to care much about console while they keep announcing, like, you know, they'll make them. It's just, they're killing the main foot that caused their like leg to stand on, really. Because there are some people out there who have bought both consoles, but now even I feel like those people will wonder what the heck is the point in getting an Xbox now at this point. While Xbox is pivoting to become a mega publisher, PlayStation seems like they're still doubling down on being the premier console destination. Like, just heading into 2026, Sony is in a dominant position right now in the console market, bro. And why does it seem like a bright future for Team Blue? It feels like they're like the default choice right now for core gamers, like those who are just, you know, straight forward, like, you know, don't even know how to get into games like that. PlayStation might be the biggest brand name that they see popping up nowadays. And then we have to throw in one other thing that might make PlayStation sales go crazy this year. And I say this as a guy who currently doesn't have a PlayStation 5 because I have a PC. I haven't been really motivated to get a PlayStation 5 as much this year, but I mean, not this year, but these past years. But I know I'm going to get one this year, and that is because the big monster waiting near the end of this year, Grand Theft Auto 6. Even like analysts predict Sony will capture possibly as high as 75% of the hardware windfall from Grand Theft Auto 6's release, which currently it remains a console exclusive at launch. And I feel like, yes, as we get closer and closer to that release date of GTA 6, Sony is going to see a lot of console buys from people who didn't have the PlayStation 5 prior. We already saw that in 2025 itself, a lot of people moved over to the PlayStation 5 who were previously on the PS4. It kind of feels odd a little bit sometimes, you know, seeing people who once dogged PlayStation now supporting it so heavy. You have so many content creators even nowadays who started out their careers as heavy Xbox players. but now they're all over PlayStation. Yeah, it's been such a big shift to see PlayStation go from the one that everybody was saying the 360 was better than and all this and that, and then the next era, PlayStation just dog walks Xbox. And now you see everybody who was doubting PlayStation back then, now all of a sudden treating it like it's Apple, the Apple of the goddamn, gaming industry at this point. Plus, on top of the fact, Sony isn't ignoring PC. They're bringing more titles there, but they've just kept the identity of the PlayStation console intact, something that Xbox has not really cared much to do. It feels like PlayStation is kind of holding on to their branding very heavy, kind of still wanting to push it as the premium, quote unquote premium experience for gamers. And I get it, because I'm not gonna lie, PC gaming is kind of a tornado to deal with sometimes. Having to go through settings and navigate this and navigate that to stop hitching and all this and that, and all the wondering as well if your PC has the strongest components inside of it to maintain a game, even if you meet the minimum and maximum requirements. It's just it's a different world. So yeah, I definitely remember the days where console was just really the talk of the town, and something that really just made things easier to deal with. My thoughts though on what happens next. Did anyone actually win in this? Like, if you look at the balance sheet, Sony won the hardware war, but Microsoft is betting that they can win the software war by being everywhere, I suppose. I say definitely on paper the console war is dead because the walls are gone. In 2026, the battle has moved to the cloud, to mobile, and to whoever can control the best IP. But for those of us who grew up arguing, like in school hallways even, about which box was better, it's definitely the end of an era. But what do you guys think? Is Xbox's new strategy a brilliant move or a brand killing mistake? And is PlayStation's dominance good for the industry, or do we need more competitive Xbox? It's just something to think about. But with that, I'll catch you guys in the next video. Appreciate you listening to my ramblings today, and bye for now.